Welcome to the Mental Health and You podcast. This podcast brings you information and advice from across the Norfolk and Suffolk NHS Foundation Trust, with a range of teams, services and those who use them sharing their experiences and wisdom with us every fortnight.
Hello, welcome to the Mental Health and You podcast. I'm Sarah, and today I'm going to talk about my role as the Voluntary Services Coordinator here at Norfolk and Suffolk Foundation Trust. And today I've got Andrea with me, and who's currently a volunteer, and we're going to have a little chat. So Andrea, hello, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi everybody, I'm Andrea. Oh, first of all, thanks for inviting me to join you on the podcast, Sarah. So I'm Andrea. I'm a people participation coordinator within the trust, but I do some volunteering outside. It's something I really enjoy. So I thought it might be nice for those listening to find out a bit more about your role and how you can support them into volunteering.
Yeah, brilliant. Let's do it.
Okay, so what does volunteering look like within the trust, Sarah?
So having volunteers in our trust, we have a few volunteer roles. So that can be anything from supporting groups and activities in the community or in the wards. I also have some volunteers that help out in gardens, making them a nice place for patients and their carers to sit in outside, so they get some space outside and just spend some time outside in nature, really. And the roles that we have are a mixture. So where people can see people face to face, they can volunteer together with people, or they can have roles that don't have any patient contact, such as the gardeners, or even where they talk to people on the telephone, getting feedback for our friends and family test. And also, we also invite external volunteers to come through from other organisations, such as Pets as Therapy volunteers. So there's the people that bring their pets in to interact with people on the ward. So they come through our volunteer recruitment process as well, and they are really, really appreciated when they're here.
That sounds fantastic, and so much variety as well. So I was just thinking that if you have somebody approach you who'd like to volunteer and the kind of role they're looking for isn't one that's currently available, are you open to suggestions? Can you make inquiries?
Yeah. I mean, if people have an idea of a role or something they'd like to do, yeah, we can definitely have a look and see if that's something we can offer. We do need to have some considerations where if the role already exists or it's something that should be done by a paid member of staff. But there's always scope for us to negotiate and find something that works for everyone. And we do have a mixture of volunteers from different backgrounds. So, and we would welcome anyone applying for the volunteer roles. We want as many people as possible to come and join us and bring their experience and knowledge and skills to help support us. Even if people do have a criminal record, that doesn't automatically exclude you from applying for a volunteer role. We would have a talk about it. We would have a discussion and see, make an assessment and see what happens, and if it's okay to go through for the role, or if we maybe need to look at something else. It doesn't mean that anyone with a criminal record can't volunteer. I do think everyone should be given a chance, given an opportunity to try something.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And it's so good to hear that you're trying to remove all those barriers as well. I mean, it could be quite overwhelming, really, just even the thought of volunteering and, committing to something regularly. How do you support someone who you might chat with who is feeling a little bit overwhelmed?
I mean, it all starts with just that initial inquiry and having a chat with people and see what they want to do. And, it's a really lovely part of my job that I get to talk to people and find out their experiences and their skills. And what I try to do then is try and find a placement that works for them. So if they're really keen, they want to maybe volunteer in a team, but they're not quite sure that that's the best place for them at the moment, I might suggest them starting off in a role that doesn't include patient contact. So then they can build their confidence up and get an idea of volunteering and what the trust looks like before they go on and move into a different role. And I always suggest that people start off really slowly. They start off with a couple of hours and builds their confidence up that way, and ensure they've got a really supportive team around them that they feel comfortable with as well. It's really important to get that balance right as well.
Yeah, I love that. So small steps, they work every time,
Absolutely.
don't they? Not putting any
Yeah.
pressure on yourself. Brilliant. Okay. So what are some of the reasons people give you for wanting to volunteer?
Quite a lot of reasons, really. Some people want to get back to work. They've been unemployed and they want to start slowly building themselves up and their confidence and their experience to get back in to employment. They want to check also if they want, they're interested in mental health, but they want to make sure that it's something they feel comfortable to be a part of before they make that big step and change careers. A lot of people are studying mental health and want to get some experience. But it's people who have been supported or know someone who's been supported by our services, and they want to get involved and they want to give something back to the organisation that supported them.
Brilliant. Okay. So say they've been volunteering for a little while, but then they need to speak to you about something. They've got a question on a day-to-day basis. Who would that be that they would talk to?
So when everyone is given a placement, they have a volunteer supervisor that sits within that part of the team, and they look after them. So, for example, if they were in a group, it would ideally be the person running the group that they see on a day-to-day basis, that they can ask questions or ask for support. But I'm available as well. People will have my contact details and ask for advice. And when we do the volunteer induction training, they're given the contact details of various teams, so like health and safety, for example, so they know where to go if they've got a concern about something, and they can take that forward and ask for advice from the health and safety specialist, for example.
Yeah, that's brilliant. It sounds like there's loads of support available. That's really reassuring. So, can we find out a little bit more about you, Sarah? What was it that brought you to the role?
I kind of fell into the role a little bit, actually. I started out within the trust, and I was working as a support worker in a service within the trust, which was the substance misuse services. And it went through a little bit of a restructure. So people were moved about a little bit, and I got the volunteer coordinator post. And I worked in that role for about 5 years. So I was really got involved with getting people into the service as volunteers, helped with training, and covered actually in the end up all of Norfolk for substance misuse services with volunteers. And then moved to this role in the trust a few years ago now, actually, 4 or 5 years ago. So it's been looking after volunteers for nearly 10 years.
Yeah, brilliant. So we've got someone really experienced in the role. Oh, we're really lucky to have you. And what do you enjoy about your job? What keeps you coming back?
Just meeting people, actually, just being a really small part of people's lives, and them getting into, if they're moving into work or an interest in volunteer or interest in this field, but also, seeing that transformation throughout the process. So, if people are really kind of worried or cautious about volunteering, and as you get them through the process and they go on to volunteer, how settled they are at the end of it and confident, and they are really appreciated by the staff that are around them and getting really good feedback. I once had a member of staff who I got a volunteer into the group, and they weren't quite sure how the volunteer was going to work, and they said, oh well, we'll see how it goes. They were a bit, I don't think they were entirely convinced about the impact a volunteer could have. And after the group, I asked him how it went, and he wouldn't stop raving. He became my biggest advocate for having volunteers in the group, actually. So it was just a really nice thing when you can see people's perspective change about volunteering, but also about volunteers as well, and the impact they can have on services and the people around them. So that's a really nice thing to be able to see and be a part of.
Yeah, it sounds like a really rewarding role.
Mm.
Yeah. That's brilliant. So I think we touched on this earlier, but you work within the trust, but did you say you also work alongside other organisations?
Yeah, so I link in with other NHS trusts, certainly in Norfolk and Suffolk, and we share ideas, we share knowledge, we sometimes share roles. So if they've got a good idea for a role, we see if we can start it off in this trust. I'm also part of an organisation called the National Association of Voluntary Service Managers, which is we call NAVSAM for short because it's quite a long thing to say.
Okay.
And they're in the NHS supporting volunteer managers, but they've been running for over 60 years within the
Wow.
NHS. So it kind of gives you an idea of how long volunteers have been organised within the NHS. But I imagine in health services before that even, we had volunteers supporting, I guess as long as we've had some level of healthcare within the UK, really. So it's just an idea of volunteering is not a new thing. It's always been there, but I guess hopefully it's becoming a little bit more open into people's eyes and awareness of it so people can see what they can do as a volunteer.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so can you tell me a bit about the process? So if someone right now is listening to this podcast and they're thinking, do you know what, that's something I might like to get involved in, what does the process look like? What should they do?
Well, I'd recommend that they have a look on our website at the volunteering opportunities on there. So if they go to www.nsft.nhs.uk and click on the Work With Us tab and click on volunteering, there's some volunteering opportunities on there so people can have a look that gives people ideas of the roles that we. But then if they come and contact me and have a chat and we can discuss what volunteering looks like, they complete an application form, and I like to have an interview with them with someone from the area that they're going to be going in, because I can
Okay.
answer the volunteer questions, but I can't necessarily answer all the ins and outs of what a ward looks like or what the activities are going to look like on the ward. And when I say interview, it's really informal. You don't, we're not going to be sit there marking you. We're not looking at your answers in touch. It's more of a chance for us to get to know you and for you to get to know us and a little bit about the trust as well. So if, people are a little bit nervous, we can make sure they're given a little bit extra support and and things like that. So we don't want it to be a barrier for people coming in. We do criminal records checks, so they're now called disclosure and barring service checks. We take references from 2 people that have known you for over 3 years, and we complete some occupational health checks as well. And that's literally just if there's any support that anyone needs, we have the best way. We're advised on the best way we can support you. So things like reasonable adjustments or might need extra time when they're taking on training, for example. And then they have a training day, volunteer induction, and then we can look at if we need to give them further training, like personal safety, for example, or and then we'll arrange an ID badge and a nice uniform for them. And we also cover their out-of-pocket expenses, which is a posh way of saying we reimburse their travel. So if they need to get a bus or a car to where we are and they need to use a car park because some of our sites don't have car parking, we'd reimburse that for them.
Wow. Sounds like you've covered everything there. It really does. So you mentioned training's going to be provided, so they don't need to come with any like previous experience of volunteering or having done anything in a particular area.
Yeah, absolutely not. I mean, the volunteer induction training kind of introduces them to things they might need to know about the NHS. So there's the stuff that they do need to know, like health and safety and fire safety, but we also talk a little bit about communication and what happens when people can become unwell and what to do in those situations. But in terms of experience of volunteering, I don't look for people who have experience of mental health. That's not a prerequisite. It's not the first thing I would look for. I look for, can people talk to people? Are they passionate about mental health? I look for someone with values that kind of align with our trust values.
Yeah.
Stuff they can learn as they go along. What I really want is someone who's kind and respectful and, wants to know about people and support people. That's what I look for. It's not a key thing for them to have mental health knowledge or experience.
No.
That can be taught.
Brilliant.
That could be learned.
Okay.
So, Andrea, you mentioned at the start that you've been volunteering, or you're currently volunteering at the moment. So tell me about that. What kind of things do you do and what do you love about it?
Okay, well, I've volunteered for many years in different roles. I guess when I first started volunteering, it's because I wasn't well enough, or didn't feel I was well enough to work. So really, that helped me to build my confidence and my self-esteem, and just to get myself back in a workplace. My first placement was in the charity shop, very small and quiet. I explained that I hadn't been very well, and we took really slow steps, and that helped me really to get a foot in the door. It was something I could put on my CV. They also gave me a reference when I started looking for work, and it gave me an idea of the kind of things I wanted to do. It also gave me routine as well, because I knew I had to get up at a certain time and had a certain amount of responsibility, if you like, to go to the job. Um, it gave me a purpose, and it helped me feel connected to other people, when at a point before then I'd really been quite lonely and kind of was out of the routine of having conversations with people. I felt part of something. It was really good. Yeah, and I felt I made a difference to other people as well. Whether it was the charity shop work that I did, or when I did some volunteering at a care home, or with young people that had been excluded from school. Currently, I'm doing some volunteering at a local church youth group, and that's really good because it gives the youngsters something to do after school every couple of weeks. We do arty type projects, and we watch videos, and we've got a tuck shop. It's really good. I would definitely recommend volunteering. It just makes me feel good, really, and I enjoy the time I spend, giving my time to other people. It's really rewarding.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you for
so
sharing that.
that's all right. It's all right. I love talking about it. So I guess we kind of covered this, but as we're coming to the end of the podcast, so where can people find information now, for their next steps?
So if they go onto the website, which is, I'll repeat it again, which is www.nsft.nhs.uk.
Okay.
If they click on the Work With Us tab, and that expands to a volunteering tab amongst a few others. And if they click on that, that'll take you to the volunteer opportunities that are available. And there's information sheets about the different roles. And there's also a volunteer email address that people can email, and I will contact them back. And the email is volunteer@nsft.nhs.uk. And if someone's using our services within the trust, or is supporting someone accessing our services, you can contact the care coordinator or the clinician or support worker, and they can get in touch with me, and I can speak to people as much as they would like about opportunities and volunteering, and see what they want to do.
Brilliant. Okay. And I'm just going to ask, do these meetings, in-person meetings, include coffee and cake, Sarah?
I'm sure they can, yes.
Brilliant. Okay.
That's a good thing. Always coffee and cake is required, isn't it?
Excellent. I love that. Okay, so I mean that brings us to the end, doesn't it? Thank you so
Yes.
much for inviting me, and thank you everybody for listening.
Yeah, thank you everybody, and thank you for letting me talk a little bit about my job and volunteering, and yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.
Thanks for listening. Please subscribe to make sure you don't miss a future episode. Let us know what you thought of this episode by reaching out on social media. If you haven't already, listen back to previous episodes to hear some of the best mental health advice for you.